We are the Childhood Collective, and we have helped thousands of overwhelmed parents find joy and confidence in raising their child with ADHD. I'm Katie, a speech language pathologist.
And I'm Lori.
And I'm Mallory, and we're both child psychologists. We combine the science of ADHD with the compassion of moms and bring you practical tools you can start using today.
So hit subscribe and let's help your family shine with ADHD.
Today, we are so excited to welcome Lizzie Assa, the founder of the Workspace for Children, onto the podcast. Lizzie is a parenting strategist, play expert, truly, and a mother of 3. With a background in early childhood education and experience working with families and children, Lizzie helps parents and caregivers avoid burnout by teaching their children independent play. She is a firm believer in the power of simplicity, love that, and consistency in play, and is dedicated to promoting these values.
Prior to starting the Workplace for Children, Lizzie received her master's in education from Bank Street College of Education in New York City and taught nursery school in Manhattan. And she has been featured in various publications such as Parents Magazine, New York Times Parenting, Time, and the Wall Street Journal. We are so excited to have you on today, Lizzie.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
I have to admit, Lizzie, even before starting the Childhood Collective, I have been a fan of yours. I've been following you for a long time, so I am just fangirling a little bit to have you on the podcast today. I'm so excited.
Oh, well, thank you. And it's equal. I love what you offer. My youngest has a recent ADHD diagnosis, so I've been leaning into your courses and your account so much.
Oh, thank you so much. Love to hear that. So most of our families listening are, like you, parents raising kids with ADHD. They're doing all the things from evaluations to therapies to advocating for their child at school to managing all the big emotions at home, and they're stretched really thin. They're really tired. And something that can be a game changer for these families is having kids that know how to and like to play independently, right? So this is why we're so excited to have you on, the independent play expert, sharing your knowledge with us.
So Lizzie, will you start by sharing why you're so passionate about this topic and what led you to wanting to help families with independent play?
Sure. So I am a mom of 3 now big kids. But when they were little, I was a stay-at-home mom and I was home with them. And I had this really interesting experience, which was that I was a former classroom teacher. I have a master's in education. I was lucky enough to learn under really some of the greats. And when I would spend time with my friends, my other mom friends, they were really struggling to like take a shower even, or just like everyone always says, drink their coffee hot. And I realized that there was something different happening in my house. And that's that I was using the knowledge that I had from my classroom experience to implement systems in my home that would give me back a break. It would give me back time for myself so that I could recharge, so that I could show up for my kids and my life and my partner the way I wanted to. And I say this not to say I had it all figured out, because by all I did not. But in the area of being able to get a break every single day, I did. And so I slowly started sharing ways with my friends just about how to implement small, simple steps for independence, especially independent play with their kids. And I realized we were really onto something. And that's how the Workspace for Children started.
I love it. I love that the way you describe that too. It's like, it's helping us as parents to show up the way we want to, right? We can be there for our partners. We can still have things in our life that we're doing outside of that. Like really kind of early parenting is so exhausting and so draining.
It's just all encompassing. And unless everyone talks about self-care, but unless you're really intentional about actually taking that time back for yourself and you understand why you're doing it, it doesn't happen.
Even if I need to do self-care and I need to, have this time for myself, how do you carve that out? How do you make that happen? So,
and even as moms, calling it self-care is so guilt inducing. And so when we introduce something like independent play, that's something that's actually really good for your kid on so many levels. And it's really, really good for the adults in the home as well.
Absolutely. Everyone benefits. So the idea of independent play is amazing, but it's probably a little bit more complicated, a little bit, more easily said than done, than just, telling your child, go find something to do, especially these families that are raising kids with ADHD. So what are some of the roadblocks that you see families encountering, and what advice or tips would you give them to kind of overcome some of these roadblocks to really having a kid who knows how to play independently?
I love that question because I do think there is so much overwhelm when we think about independent play. And oftentimes, as parents, we think, this isn't for my kid. My kid just can't do this.
Mm-hmm.
And I will tell you, like, I have three very different kids. And one of them, I was lucky. One of them was one of those kids that just played, right? And I would love to take credit for it, but no. My other two had to really learn the skill of independent play, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think parents of ADHD kids are actually at an advantage here because you're already doing so much work implementing systems and skills with your kids. You already know how to build foundations and follow through.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you just add in independent play as one of those, as like another skill, another tool in your parenting tool belt, another tool in your child's tool belt, you're going to feel less overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm. So one of the roadblocks I heard you say is kind of just the mindset of independent play isn't for my child. Like, that's just not possible for my kid. So what you say to that is, no, this is something for every child.
This is for every child. And oftentimes when people want to take my course, they'll say, well, my child's neurodivergent. I don't think this is going to work. And I implicitly always tell them, play is for all children.
Mm-hmm.
And all children can play. Play looks differently for each. It looks different for each unique child. Sure. And that's a huge, huge thing to remember. But all children come into this world with the ability to play.
I love that you explained it to, like, you have three kids, right? It's almost like your own little mini case study. And before we got on today, Mallory and I were just talking about that. And I said, hey, I have one kid who will play independently so well. And again, I don't take the credit for that, but I have one who can play on her own, but it's like finding what to do can be really overwhelming for her. So it's almost like the choosing part is where she struggles, not the actual like being on her own, if that makes sense. So I think it is so interesting. And I love how you said, like, each child has the capacity, but they might be starting out at different points in their readiness. And that's, I think, a really
Absolutely
important thing for parents to understand, because it's like, it feels maybe like a huge mountain for some parents to be like, oh, great, now I'm just going to tell my kid to go play. And that is not even remotely happening right now.
It's not.
So,
I mean, and listen, my kids have been playing independently and having structured quiet time for their entire lives. And I still can't just when I feel like it say, well, just go to your room and have quiet time. Just go play. They would look at me like I'm crazy. That's not how it works, right? And so, and also to your point, it's going to, the way your child leads into play is going to look different for each unique individual. So are the materials that they're going to use, and so are their takeaways from the play, right? So oftentimes people will say, well, my kid can't play. My kid can't play independently. But when we dig a little deeper, I find out that this kid actually loves to lay on their bed and bounce a ball against the wall, right? Mm-hmm. And that actually is playing, right? Because the definition of play is to do something for enjoyment and relaxation, right? And they are going to walk out of that kind of zoned out state of bouncing a ball against the wall and just kind of feeling refreshed and recharged. So it doesn't have to look like your child playing with little figurines or some fancy sensory setup that you spent an hour doing that they tore through in 2 seconds and said they were done. That's not what play has to look like.
I think that's great for our audience to hear, because we do have some families listening who have 9, 10, 11, 12-year-olds, tweens, almost teens, who are not like playing in a sense of word, like you said, like with little figurines anymore. But they may not be playing like that, but they're still playing.
Mm-hmm. Think about yourself as an adult, right? The two of you, you've probably played differently. One of you may love to go running or play sports or go out dancing with friends, while the other one of you may love to play by taking a warm bath or reading a good book. The outcome is the same, but the way you get there is different.
So that's actually a great point, Lizzie. I feel like I'm the one that would dance, by the way, but not run. I would not be up for the running. But Mallory, we went on a girls' weekend, and this past weekend, she got me doing burpees and like star jumps and all the things. So we're working on it. But anyway, I was going to ask you, can you actually maybe we back up a little bit and define play? Because the way you just defined it, I feel like that makes it so much more broad and so much easier for parents to maybe like think of play. Because I know even for myself, I think of play as like, okay, we're going to sit down with the Barbies. So tell us maybe, what is your definition of play?
My definition of play, and it is the actual, if you look it up in the dictionary, the definition of play is really to do something for enjoyment. That's it.
Okay.
Right?
So adults should be playing.
Adults should be playing. And as a society, we spend millions of dollars trying to get ourselves to go back to that place as adults of play, right?
Mm-hmm.
We take supplements, we do yoga, we do expensive workout classes, we, do all of these things, but our kids already know that the answer is play, and it is already inherently in them. It is our job to develop that muscle, to build that skill so they can take that well into adulthood.
I love that. And I think something we talk a lot about on our account is that a lot of times it's just a skill that hasn't been developed yet. We need to teach our child this skill. We need to practice this skill. We need lots of opportunities to do this skill. And so just like, growing the executive functions, we need to practice play too, to grow that skill.
And it's never too late. You can always start where you are, like with almost any skill, right? Maybe an older child might go through, the scaffold faster and learn faster than your young child will, but it's never too late. You can always start where you are.
One thing I hear from my friends is that their kids often think boring tasks like chores or homework are going to take forever. And in the same breath, their kids can play 2 hours of Minecraft and then complain that they just got started.
Okay, I think that friend you're referring to might actually be me.
I'm not naming names. One tool we all love and have in our own homes is Time Timer.
At this point, I think we all have multiple time timers. For kids with ADHD, time can be a very abstract concept, and Time Timer helps by making time more concrete. It helps kids visually see the passage of time.
And it can prevent those inevitable meltdowns when 2 hours of Minecraft just wasn't justification enough to ask your child to complete 5 minutes of chores.
From homework to chores to screen time to daily hygiene to our own work, we love Time Timer because it is so versatile, and their designs are cute too. A staple in our homes.
If you have a child with ADHD, we know you need a Time Timer, and we have a discount code for you to use. So head to timetimer.com and use the code TCC to get the discount. You can also find the link and code in the show notes.
I think of Dr. Hallowell. He's a big name in the ADHD field, and he describes boredom as an ADHDer's kryptonite, right? Because ADHD brains are just seeking that constant stimulation. That feeling of boredom is almost intolerable. And so I think a lot of parents, because of that, feel like they constantly need to entertain their child and help them find things to do. So for those kids who don't have that skill yet, and the parents want to break out of this constant cruise director cycle, what would be a good way to start for families that are just getting started?
The best way to start, I'm always going to say, is taking a strengths-based approach. What does your child love? What are they already really good at? Okay. Say your child really loves, I don't know, trucks, and they're really, and if you don't know what your child loves, that's okay too. You're really busy and you're trying to do so many things. And so I often say to people, it's the way to figure it out is not even that tricky. It's literally when you're driving in the car and your kid is talking to you in the back, what are they talking about? What's their favorite show? What's like that sport or that, whatever it is that they're always talking about. There's so much value in just sitting back and observing your kid. You don't have to make it about piano or math, or don't try to squeeze in all those things, right? This is about your child, their interests and their strengths. So you really want to start from there. And then you want to think about, especially for our ADHD parents it would be nearly impossible to not feel burned out. You're working so hard all the time, right?
Absolutely.
So let's think about ways to use your environment as a third set of hands. Let's think about how to really curate a space for them that is unique to their strengths, their capabilities and their personality. And I'm not talking about a fancy playroom. You can do this literally in an apartment, anywhere. You don't need a big old playroom. But what you do need is to know that if your child is someone who, really is really strong with their fine motor skills, they love to draw like little teeny tiny things, then a space for them that would be great would be a tray with small pencils and little mini cute erasers and a really nice notebook that's just for them, and it's set out right where they can see it, but also sort of tucked away so they can keep an eye contact with you, but they also aren't as super distracted by everything going on. But if you have a child who is, really loves to make large moments and movements, and they make a big entrance when they come in and they're accidentally always knocking things down, and they're going to get frustrated with that setup, right? So for that child, instead, I would say, hey, let's put out a big, heavy lump of clay, or let's put out a big thing of Play-Doh, not a few little mini containers, but like a real big lump of Play-Doh that it's okay if they mix it or stomp it or pound it. Or we're not going to put out little dainty magnetiles. That's frustrating for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Instead, maybe we're going to put out heavier blocks or even the cardboard blocks that are okay to knock down. We want to think about who is your child as an individual and how can you set them up for success by using what they're already good at.
I love that. And I there's so many things to unpack in what you just said, like so much good stuff. So that third set of hands, I absolutely love that. We all could use a third, maybe a fourth set of hands. And I think that's a really just a beautiful way for parents to conceptualize this, right? Like this is a support for the whole family. And then I think I know myself, I love to go on Pinterest and look at like playroom design and all these different things. And if I'm setting up my own space, I'm going to make it really cute, right? And I have a daughter who loves cute spaces and would totally love the little, journal and all of that. And then I have a son who is like big, big energy all the time, right? And so it's like really, I love that you said it doesn't have to be fancy, but it does. Most important is that it's going to be personalized to your child. And people who have more than one kid, I mean, there's a lot to think about here.
Yep.
So yeah, I love that you said that though. It's like, cause I know myself, I'm immediately opening Pinterest and being like, oh, okay, I need to order all this stuff from Target. And that's really not necessary, right?
No, it's not. I want to like even think about this example. Like you're already doing this in so many areas of your life for your child, right? You are probably already setting out their backpack, their shoes, their coat to set them up for success the next morning, right? If you walked into your child's bathroom, they probably have a toothbrush next to their toothpaste, next to a towel and soap. So you already know how to do this. Mm-hmm. You just have to kind of switch your mind a little bit into play as a skill and setting them up for success the same way you're doing it in all other areas in your life. You're doing it with food also. When you go grocery shopping that your son might like these foods and your daughter might like these foods, and how am I going to find a balance of both, right?
Right.
You're already doing that. And so it's really just kind of shifting that over to the play.
And I think we hear from so many parents too, like, I need my child, like I really want them to be in organized sports or like really structured activities. And I think that it can be so hard as an ADHD parent because we tend to really compare our kids and our situation to our next door neighbor and their kids. And it's something that parents ask us almost daily. Like, I really want my kid to play on this structured baseball team and it's a struggle. And so I think what you're saying too is like, this is so important, this play, that you could even be thinking about it as like, we're not doing a structured sport right now. We're going to work on this play and make this a part of our everyday life. And that has value. It has so much value. It's not like, I feel like a lot of parents think of it as like, oh, I have my structured tasks where my kids are like learning, right? Like piano or baseball or whatever it is. And then we have play, and that's like maybe neutral time or just not as useful. But that's not what you teach about play at all.
No, it's actually the opposite. And when I work with my one-to-one clients, we really look at their day and talk about how we can build in that play every single day, right? And that can sound really overwhelming, but play can actually be, 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there. You do what works for your family because that's how you stay consistent. Consistency and simplicity are key. Doing it what looks like what your neighbors or that what worked for this person or that person isn't going to help you. It's really going to be about getting to know your unique child and your family's needs, right? And then switching your mindset to like, I'm not just teaching my kids to play independently because I need a break. I'm actually teaching my kid independently because this is how they become a flexible thinker. This is how
Yes.
they learn to be a self-starter. This is how they learn what they're really good at. This is a space where they can try things on without anyone else judging them. You know, a lot of times we have siblings, or I know, you know, my youngest is 10. She's ADHD. She can be super sensitive about, you know, other people seeing what she's doing, or,
Mhm.
you know, taking that risk in front of other people. And quiet time's a really great place for her to try out those ideas, you know,
Yes.
make them work for her before she goes out into the world with them, because that's what helps her feel confident.
That's so important. And we talk a lot about helping kids with ADHD build confidence because we know from the research that kids with more challenging behavior, I'm doing air quotes there, kids with more challenging behaviors get more than double the criticism and negative feedback from the people in their life. So all day they're hit with like, don't do that. Don't touch that. Why didn't you finish that? And it wears on your self-esteem. And you do start to worry about the constant judgment because everyone seemingly always has eyes on you and is telling you what you should and you shouldn't do. So having this independent playtime, this space to just be completely without judgment and just be yourself is so important for them.
And often you can frame it that way for your kids. But I just want to back up and say, just also as an ADHD parent, I that is like my guilt factor every night. Like as I fall asleep thinking, oh, how many times did I say don't do that, or why didn't, or touch the finish this, or blah, you know. So
Yes,
yes,
it's so
yes to
hard.
that.
I know. And I think that being aware of it is honestly the first step, right? Like there's so many times that we aren't aware of what we're doing, but as soon as you realize it, it's like you can start to change the language that you're using and the way
Mhm.
that you're redirecting. But I know it's really true, and it's really exhausting for us. It's even more exhausting for them. And I just
Yeah.
love the idea that this is like they're going to build their confidence and try out new things. I really relate to that just internal need of like, I don't want to fail publicly. So I love that idea of like that space. And then I think so many of our listeners are really interested in executive functioning. And you said this, that flexibility. These are executive functions that are developing through play. I'm going to sequence. How am I going to do all these things? Oh, that bridge broke. It didn't work. Okay, let me start over and back up and change it and shift, right? And there's so many executive functions that get built into it. I think it's not just, I don't know how to say it. It's not just play. There's so much more to play.
It is so rich
Yeah.
in every aspect, in every area. And, you know, oftentimes people will say, you know, if they have siblings, they want them, you know, they're asked, because I'm always telling people you should separate them for quiet time. You should give them that own space. And they'll say, but I want them to get along, but I'm so happy they're playing. And, but I also want to challenge that notion with saying, you know, if you have kids who are siblings, you know that one probably bulldozes the other one a little bit, not in a way that is not nice, in a way that
Right.
that's just their personalities, right? And so this quiet time is giving each of those kids a chance to try out their own ideas without anyone else interrupting them, anyone else changing their train of thought. They can really take however little or long they want to think, to like go on this thought path with themselves. It's really just such an important, it's meditative for kids. It really is.
Can you explain a little bit more about the quiet time piece? Because I love this idea, and I've done a little bit of quiet time at my house. And honestly, my kids at first will resist it, like the first day that we do it after a long break of quiet times. But then they start to look forward to it more. But I feel like it might look different in different families. So how do you conceptualize quiet time?
I love that you said it looks different in different families, because it should look different in different families, right? And for me, quiet time is a built-in time every single day for quiet, independent play. You are by yourself. You are not on a screen or a device, and your thoughts and ideas and what you choose to do comes from you. So that sounds like a really big bite to take, you know, thinking like, my kid's not doing all of that, right? But when you do the work on the back end, it's going to be a much smaller bite for them. So what I mean by that is the work on the back end is that you are going to already know what they're interested in and how they play best. And you're going to use your environment to set that up. So your child can wander into their room. And I'm not saying like a fancy play setup or sensory bin or anything like that. I'm talking about like basic materials that are curated to meet your unique child's needs. So when they come in, it's not hard for them to start playing.
Okay.
And so it's going to look different for different families. Now, some people are going to have quiet time first thing in the morning, and some people are going to have quiet time in the middle of the day when the baby's napping. Some people are going to do it only on the weekends because their kids are in daycare all day. And that's okay. You do what works for you because that's how you become consistent. The other benefit of quiet time is when kids get really, really good at quiet time, they also get really, really good at independent play throughout the day. You will notice so much more that they're already now knowing, gosh, I'm getting really good at this. Like I have all these ideas now that I want to play or work through or, take care of. And you're going to find that during the day, they are playing independently. And again, you can support that by curating little pockets throughout your home that match your child's needs. So maybe you have a drawer in the kitchen that has your daughter's little mini trucks and your son's little notebook and crayons, and you can set those out just on the little table. You don't have to say, it's time to play trucks. No.
Mm-hmm.
When they come into the kitchen to see what you're doing, inevitably, they're going to notice what's happening.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of like the snowball effect almost. Like the more that they are getting that quiet time and that independent play, the more they want it because they start to really enjoy it and their brain craves it and it is fun for them. So I think that's great for families.
It's like almost like exercise, it's like going to the gym.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like me after I did those burpees. And now I'm like, okay, I need to go for a walk because I'm kind of sore from all the burpees. So it's a good snowball.
Yeah.
It's good. It's good for everyone.
Yeah. So the shift to independent play is not going to happen overnight. This is a skill that families need to learn. So what kind of encouragement would you offer families as they kind of embark on this journey of, really implementing quiet time and independent play in their home? What encouragement do you have for them?
The best thing I can tell people really is to go slow and be patient and really think of it as a skill that you're teaching. And especially, like I said before, for our ADHD families, you're already really, really good at breaking things down and teaching skills. So you can do this. If you also observe your child. If you don't have time to sit there and observe them, then really, before you go to sleep at night, close your eyes for a few minutes and just think back on the day and just think about, just take a few minutes to think about each of your kids and what do they really enjoy? What do they really like? What's their favorite show? And how can you reflect that in play for them?
I love it. This is so helpful, Lizzie. I'm excited to implement some of these things in my own home. And I know that a lot of people that are listening are probably going to want some more information. Can you tell our families a little bit about your quiet time and independent play courses and how they can connect with you or find you on social media to learn more?
Sure. You can always find me at the Workspace for Children on Instagram. And in the link in my bio, you'll find I have a course that actually teaches parents how to understand what kind of play is best for their child. So we actually break it down into, where is your child developmentally and what kind of play is best for them. And the course has a workbook so you can customize and really learn for each of your kids how to make this simple and consistent and how to make it work.
And I love that you said to the developmental level, because we are always encouraging parents to look at their child's developmental level. That might not match their age, right? But I love that it's so customizable, and I think it could be a huge benefit to a lot of our families. So Lizzie, thank you again so much for being here. We've loved talking with you.
I love being here. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks for listening to Shining with ADHD by your hosts, Lori, Katie, and Mallory of the Childhood Collective.
If you enjoyed this episode, please like this video and hit subscribe so you can be the first to know when a new episode airs.
If you are looking for links and resources mentioned in this episode, you can always find those in the show notes. See you next time.